Having a baby is such an event in a lifetime that when you have fertility problems, one of the things you feel is tremendous fear. This is a problem that can occur right from the start, or even after you have had the opportunity to have your first child. The story you are about to discover is rare enough to be told, but it is very real anyway. It's the story of a couple who thought they would never have children, but it became unthinkable, which proves to us that miracles exist. It is quite common today to read stories about multiple pregnancies, but the one we are talking about here is one of the first of its kind and shows us how crucial it can be in life. It also leads us to think about what we would do instead of our parents. Imagine you find that you are expecting 7 babies. How do you handle 120 dirty diapers a week? How to prepare 40 bottles a day? This large family had to face many challenges. Discover their history. In 1996, Bobby and Kenny McCarkey became the parents of a baby girl. A miracle baby, since Bobby was born with a disease that affects her fertility. Michaela Mary was a dream come true, and the birth of a baby girl encouraged Bobby and Kenny to consider different ways to have another child and expand the family. They knew that the journey would obviously be challenging and littered with pitfalls, but thanks to advances in fertility science, the little girl would soon no longer be an only child. When Michaela Mary was born, Bobby knew she wanted more children. But after the couple tried to conceive their first child, they found it best to seek the help of a fertility specialist and undergo treatment. They were then prescribed Metrodine, a drug recommended to stimulate ovulation, which in turn helps women become pregnant. Things were taking a good turn. The couple was already imagining their second child, but they still didn't know what to expect. It had to be a simple check for Bobby by the doctor, but the ultrasound she just did showed 1, no 2, no 3, but 7. Somewhat boring news. Raising a child is no longer an easy task, so 7 babies at once, which posed a certain danger for Bobby. Imagine that 7 babies will grow up in the womb of a single mother. At that time, the future mother had to be divided between several feelings, but of course, it was only the first step. Kenny still remembers his first reaction to the doctor's announcement. Not really? Parents did not believe their eyes or ears. Although Bobby and Kenny understood the risks of continuing the pregnancy, it was inconceivable for them to risk losing one of their future children. Not every couple can boast of expecting 7 babies. No one had any information on how the birth of the 7s would take place. It was the first time in the world. Following the couple's decision not to cut down selectively, the public and the media grew increasingly interested in the small family, the choice of infertility treatment, and their courageous decision to keep 7 children. Although not everyone supported their decisions at the time, the couple later shared their beliefs in pregnancy. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and click the notification bell for more amazing stories. Bobby felt it wasn't just a pregnancy. Her stomach grew to an exaggerated size, and she had severe physical pain. She wondered how her body could make it to the end. News of the approaching birth of 7s had spread everywhere. Many people and organizations came together to help the family. Donate annual dairy products, donate diapers over several years, nanny services, and even, believe it or not, a 465 M2 house. The couple couldn't believe it. The expectant parents were already afraid of the financial difficulties they would face after the birth of their babies. But they remained optimistic, even more so when they saw all the useful gifts that were given to them. When the couple thought it was impossible, they received one last gift, a van. And a few days later, they learned that they will benefit from an annual free supply. Their children had not even been born yet, but they had already been blessed. They couldn't believe it. It was an atypical pregnancy, so Bobby had to do more tests than usual, and doctors monitored her case daily. The weeks before the birth were very stressful for the family, and Bobby was worried more and more. Bobby and Kenny were obviously impatient, but deep down they were worried. They counted the days before the birth of the sevens. With just one baby, it's completely normal and human. But then with 7 kids, even scarier. The 7 were born prematurely but healthy at Des Moines Hospital in Iowa. A real phenomenon because it was the first time it had happened. 4 boys, Kenny, Kenneth, Robert, the heaviest, Nathan Roy, Brandon James, and Joel Stephen, and 3 girls, Alexis May, Natalie Sue, and Kelsey Ann, the lightest baby. Did you remember all the first names? Not us, but parents do. That's what matters. 7s were hospitalized for several weeks after birth. The last child to be released from the hospital returned home on March 12, 1998. Natalie suffered from acid reflux and had pain when she ate. Alexis suffered from a muscle disorder that made it difficult to eat. At first, they both had to be fed the probe. Nothing out of the ordinary for children who lived in their mother's womb. And the team of doctors and nurses always watched them closely. Bobby and Kenny received a dozen congratulatory letters and other malicious letters, accusing them of using the media's attention without having to worry about the children's health. They had written American history and were the first family of its kind. It was also the first time for each of the staff at the hospital where Bobby gave birth. 2 days after the birth, all the staff present gathered to take a photo in memory. Fortunate for them to be there. Everyone, including then President Bill Clinton, congratulated their parents on the birth of 7s. They were offered a house, money, and tuition for the 7 children. As the birth took place early, journalists waiting to cover the story were taken aback. They all hurried to Des Moines Hospital to get the first picture of the 7 and camped in the parking lot to hear from the family until their release. The birth of 7s hit headlines aworld. A month later, an entire article was devoted to them in Time. It took 3 months and 10 days for the babies to be healthy enough to get home. It was a day full of laughter and tears. Reporters surrounded the family as they left the hospital. Everyone wanted to see the babies. Bobby and Kenny prepared for this attention when the time came. They handled things very well. The McCalkey family was now famous and made headlines around the world. Before they arrived at their new home, security measures had to be taken to ensure the safety of the 7-year-olds, including a police station outside, so that the family could return home without any problems. The McCalkeys did not imagine for a second how much their lives would turn upside down after the birth of these 7 beautiful babies. If you were in their shoes, how would you handle things? The healthy birth of these 7 children was reported as a medical miracle, although Alexis and Nathan had to be operated on at birth. When they were ready to return home, Clark Company's President Lloyd Clark handed over the keys to their new house of 511 square meters to a new family of 10. Everyone was excited. The couple planned to find a large house to house their many children, but the generosity of the others took the lead. Originally, Bobby and Kenny thought that their story was of interest only to journalists, but to the whole world. Several journalists contacted Bobby to tell her incredible story, and she made headlines in many newspapers and magazines, including the famous Time. In December 1997, Time magazine introduced the story of this special couple and these unique parents. The couple was a real hope around the world for all those who suffered from fertility concerns but wanted to start a family. television producers knew that welcoming the McCarkeys to one of their shows would increase viewership. As a result, the family was highly sought after by the media, which constantly invited them to television, but without success. Until then, all the news had been made by journalists without the family being heard. It was a BC News prime time that managed to get an exclusive interview, and viewers around the world could hear their amazing story told by their own voices. The birth of the Sevens caused a real media tsunami. On the one hand, there were those who accused their parents of welcoming so many children, too many children to harm the environment. And on the other hand, those who praised them. But no public criticism could hit Bobby and Kenny or erase their happiness. After all, the choice of having 7 children was a really considered choice for the couple, and it was their life. Nobody had to get involved. After media frenzy, the McCarkeys limit appearances, speaking once yearly on their Septuplets birthday, recently on Oprah. They empathize with the DNA quintuplets overexposure, cautioning against media intrusion, emphasizing children's need for privacy to thrive. Despite the great gifts they received, it was difficult for Bobby and Kenny to cope with daily life. And they were exhausted. Because just because they were out of the media didn't mean they had time to deal with them. With 7 newborns at home, there was still something to do on average. The couple changed 52 diapers a day and did 17 laundries a week, so that the children always had something to wear on their backs, to the extent that they had to buy 2 washers and 2 dryers. In one day, the children used 52 diapers and drank 42 bottles. Fortunately, when the babies were born, Bobby decided to feed them breast milk and regularly sucked the milk to last up to 3 months. She then calculated that they would need an average of 15 to 18 liters of milk a week to eat. Financial gap. The McCarkeys soon realized that they urgently needed to plan and organize to avoid burnout, depression, and financial bankruptcy. The 7 children grew well and quickly. Taking care of them and feeding them has become a real challenge for parents. Although there were many, the gifts and presents they received at birth were consumed and sold out within a few months. Bobby knew how important it was to suck milk. The parents then opted for a mixed diet. Despite the amounts needed, the family claims that food for all 10 did not exceed $300 a month. It's hard to believe. With so many children comes so much cost, energy, and responsibility. You had to be very patient, especially when the potty training was up to date. The eldest of the McCarkey family, little Michaela, cleaned up in a pot in just 4 days. This was not the case with septuplets. Parents were aware that for some children, it may take several months or years. Everyone had their own rhythm, even though they were born at the same time. Everyone was different. Bobby and Kenny, aided by 70 volunteers, managed daily tasks for their 8 children. Construction workers, part of the support network, find joy in caring for the babies, a heartwarming moment cherished by the parents amidst their privacy concerns. Relatives of the family also helped support and provide assistance since the birth of the Sevens. It was very important for Bobby and Kenny to see their loved ones meet. In the photo, we see Bobby's sister Michelle playing with one of the babies. A real moment of tenderness. It is almost certain that there are more such photos, but specifically, this one looks like from a real professional. Her aunt looks so happy that she held the baby in her arms. The oldest child often tends to be jealous of a little brother or sister. Michaela saw her life turn upside down with the arrival of 7 siblings at once, and her parents had to do everything to avoid a fit of jealousy. Fortunately, she took her role as a big nurse very seriously and got involved with the volunteers in the care of the babies. Whenever she could, she helped mom and dad or played with sevens. She apparently did so under the watchful eye of her parents. After 3 months of breastfeeding the sevens, we had to handle errands for 10 people. They did not have to spend money on dressing the babies because the manufacturer undertook to supply them with clothes for up to 5 years. So the expenses were mostly food. Their plan was to shop in bulk based on promotions and discounts rather than need. Like when Bobby bought 27 kilograms of burgers just because they were at a discount. The family spent an average of $300 each month on food. A walk generally helps soothe babies and parents. Heads kept turning as Bobby and Kenny walked through the neighborhood for a walk. It was not uncommon to see a pram for twins at the time, but they had some unusual prams, 2 prams with 4 seats. These special strollers were specially ordered from the manufacturer for sevens. Rolling over certainly attracted the attention of most passers-by. I admit that they were not perfect prams, but they managed it. The family had to find a way to save every month. Buying in bulk was not a solution for all products, especially fresh products. Then they had the idea to create a vegetable garden and plant vegetables for family consumption. Thanks to the fruits and vegetables they grew in their own backyards, they could save a lot of money on food. And it's an interesting way to educate kids about farming too bad. They couldn't keep their own cows and poultry. Since the birth of the sevens, their parents have lived under constant pressure and an intense pace of life. Raising 7 children at a time was anything but easy. In addition to material needs management, Bobby and Kenny had to take their children to see a doctor regularly to check their progress and health. In addition, some children received more important care than others because they kept the consequences of preterm birth. But no worries. The family pediatrician was familiar with all the files. The Macaulay septuplets, thriving despite premature birth, had a hearty breakfast, their growth a testament to proper nutrition. Developing a unique language in childhood, they transitioned to everyday speech as teens, showcasing their remarkable communication bond. Each year, 7 Macaulay children looked forward to their birthdays. This period was a very festive period, formed by celebrations of all kinds. But the 7th birthday was also a time of thanking God for making everyone healthy and happy. Each year was a sign that the Macaulay had made the right decision by keeping the 7 children. And even though their parents didn't have much money, all 7 children still received gifts and all the attention they deserved. Parents like to dress siblings the same way, especially when it comes to twins. The Macaulays were no exception. The 7s were matched, and all the boys wore the same clothes as the girls in between. But even though they were 7s, some grew faster than others, and the shoes were different in size. Buying clothes for this family was really something special, and none of the children could inherit the clothes from their older siblings. As you can easily imagine, dressing 7 fast-growing children can quickly become very expensive. A miracle happened that saved Bobby and Kenny the trouble of spending that money. A children's clothing company called Carter pledged to provide 7-year-olds until they reached the age of 5. The Macaulay family really never stayed alone to handle it all. Everyone stepped in, and the blessings kept pouring in. George W. Bush has just been elected President of the United States. Like any self-respecting politician, he wanted to look good in the media. So, after Bill Clinton congratulated the Macaulay on the birth of the 7s and met them on various occasions, George W. Bush invited the parents and their children to meet him in a friendly and relaxed environment. I'm not sure the kids remember that moment, but there are pictures for that. The 7s will later be able to boast meetings with presidents. As we told you earlier, Bill Clinton was the first American president to congratulate the family and meet them in person. When Bill Clinton talked to Bobby on the phone, he told her something she would never forget. When all these children go to school, you can find a job in any large American company. You will be the best organized manager in America. Nice praise, especially for the parents who did their best to go out with 8 small children. As a privileged target for the media, politicians must always look good in the media sphere in order to achieve their electoral goals. As part of that, Iowa Governor Terry Branstad came to visit the McCaughey family and the Sevens, and they even managed to take a picture of them kissing little Kenny on the cheek. We will never know if he came to see them out of pure goodness of heart, out of curiosity, or for electoral reasons. But in any case, the meeting was really publicized at the time. One would imagine that for every 7-year birthday, there were 7 times more friends, gifts, and cakes. But most of all, McCaughey's parents wanted to teach their children basic values, such as sharing. So when they were 4, they blew out 4 candles on one cake to learn how to share. In any case, having so many children in the family meant that not every child could always get exactly what he wanted and had to deal with others. We all know that children from the same family are different from each other. Although personality is genetically determined, it is influenced by family and social background. Each of the 7 had its own unique personality. Anecdotes about them are relatively rare, but here's the information we've been able to get from the kids. The funniest of the series is Kenny Jr. Those who can be considered bookworms are Joel and Natalie, and the bravest and stubborn. One of the 7 was a real little orc, mischievous, hyperactive, and very noisy. Guess who this is about? It was Kenny Jr. Bobby even nicknamed him the Pint-Size Explorer. It was just a cute little devil. Kenny bit the other kids, threw his games, and liked to annoy his other siblings. His parents were still mad at him, and deep down they knew it was all his way to ask for more attention from them. After the birth of the Sevens, Bobby and Kenny dedicated all their time to their 8 children. But they promised to find a balance between taking children, work, and marriage. So Bobby and Kenny made sure they both had an evening for them. Friday night was set as their date. They took the opportunity to go out, to the cinema, or to dinner alone. They did what was necessary to meet again, maintain their relationship, and stay united. Bonnie and Kenny cherished their septuplets, each with unique nicknames reflecting their personalities. A trip to Disney World creates cherished memories, despite challenges for the parents, offering a magical experience for the family. When the children were 8, Bonnie and Kenny agreed to be on the cover of the Ladies' Home Journal and shared previously unseen footage of the 7. It was an honor for the parents to see their children on the cover of the magazine, and the children were glad to be stars for a short time. In addition, it was an opportunity for the McCaughey's to answer logistical questions, provide information about the children's daily lives, and possibly help other parents in the same situation. Thanks for tuning in to Spread Channel. Until next time, keep your imagination